everyone, it's Darlene again from Cranky Crow. Thanks for joining us for part 2 of this video on painting a tropical fish mini mural. If you'll recall, in part 1 I had this whole blue part taped, and then I did a series of things just to remind you. First I painted it with a coat of gesso and then a flat coat of blue, and then I worked wet on wet, and I used light blue, dark blue and green to try and create a murky scene for my fish. So in this part of the series of videos, I'm very excited to go through the planning and painting process with you. So to start with, you can see that on the table down here, I don't have any paints because this is just the planning process. So what I've done is I've collected some things that I'm going to use here. As you can see on the walls, I've got all these patterns. These patterns are from our tropical fish kit. And I'm going to choose only 4 tropical fish to use for my mural because I don't want it to be too busy. It was really fun just to stand back and look at all these different fish and try and decide what to put on. Now you will notice that I took my fish pattern and then I cut the fish out because that way it's much easier just to place them where I wanted to place them. So just a note before we get into this, if I were doing this mural in a child's room, the child would probably be a little bit older. But say you have a young child who really likes fish. We have another fish kit. Our other fish kit is called the Funky Fish kit. And what I could do, instead of having this blue, more realistic looking mini mural, I could have painted this whole thing yellow. I could have taped it and then just done a few coats of flat yellow. And then I could have transferred my different sizes wherever I wanted and just made it really, really fun. If I didn't want to use yellow, I could have used blue. And you can see with these two, I've actually painted waves for the background. So with the Funky Fish, I could have had waves going all the way across here, and I could have had yellow, orange, and then had a bunch of blue fish. I could have really done anything. And then with the Funky Fish, I had lots of different bubbles going up. So you could have lots of options. The reason I wanted to do the tropical fish mural is because there are more painting techniques involved. With this, it's flat color. Anyone can do this. It's really, really easy. With this, you've already seen from the wet on wet, there's a little bit more involved. You've got to keep your wet brush. And now as we go through the steps with painting these fish, you're going to see that it's quite different from just plain painting flat color. So let's begin. Let's go back down here for a sec to the table. I've got pencil sharpener, scissors to cut out my patterns. These are actually just a reference sheet that comes with our tropical fish kit, but you can find this on Google or wherever you like just to see the colors of the fish. And then I've also got these. This is transfer paper. I use this to transfer the designs on to the mural, and in our kit it comes with a big piece of transfer paper, and just because I'm painting smaller fish, I've cut this because it's easier to work with. Something else I'm going to show you today is this. This does not come in our kits because it's not used very often, but this is actually white transfer paper, and I'm going to explain a little bit about how to use these. So as I mentioned, as you can see, I cut all of these out, and I'm just starting with the small ones at this point. I'm starting with the small ones because I want them to look further away. So imagine later I'm going to have bigger fish in the front that are going to look closer. Right now I just took my little fish, I cut them out, I've created a direction, so most of them are going this way, and then I've got just a few going the other way. You'll also notice that I've got some going off the edge. This is really important. It makes your mural look much more realistic, like a fish tank, if you've got them coming off the edges or from different directions. Really, truly, I should not have taken my tape off. And the main reason I did that is I just wanted you to see how lovely this looked once the tape was off. When I do go to paint everything again, I'm going to put the tape back on, and you'll see why that's important a little later. So I stood back, I put all my little fish up. It was really fun. This is the planning and design process, and I moved them around. All I did was take little pieces of tape and, you know, put them all over the place. And I didn't want too many to begin with. And you can see that I've left this open because I want lots of bigger fish. So at this point, I was happy with the placement of all my little fish. And I took my black transfer paper. It has a dark side and it has a slightly lighter side. And with the black, you always put the darker side down and you need to test it. So I put it under here. I was on a stepping stool and then all I did was trace. And that was it. So at this point, I have actually already traced pretty much all of my fish. And I don't know if you can zoom in and see this. But at this point, I've just got a light transfer and it just looks like a pencil line. And I'm happy with that. If I really wanted the fish to kind of look like they were disappearing, I would press very, very lightly on this, but that wasn't important for me for this. So at this point, all of these fish have been transferred, but I just wanted to mention something. For all of these fish, this black transfer paper is just fine. For the blue, it might be a little bit difficult to see a dark line. Now, this one, I haven't transferred so far. It's pretty dark here. In fact, I can use the black. The black is probably the best transfer paper to use. But I just want to give you an example of the white. So with the white, you have to press a lot harder. That's the downside. And it's a lot harder to see. There's a very, very tiny white line. And if this were really black, this is probably the darkest area. I would get a white line. So this is really useful if you're actually transferring anything on black, or like blacky purple or blacky red or anything really, really dark, because your black transfer paper won't work. The other thing you could do, if you had all black here, you didn't have any of this, is you can actually just use chalk. You can take a piece of chalk, tape this up to a window. Imagine this was a window with glass and light behind it. I could see the transfer, and then I just take white chalk, I copy that, stick it here, rub, and I will get an impression of my fish. So that's an alternative. But for us with these transfers, this black is definitely the easiest and the fastest thing. Okay, so now I'm to the point where I've got these transferred, and before I go any further, I'm going to start painting all of these fish. So we're going to take a short break while I get everything ready for the paint now, and then we'll come back.